We acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, the gathering grounds of many diverse First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples, whose footsteps have marked this land and whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community.
Hello, and welcome back to Research Recasted, the Knowledge Mobilization podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Howlett, and today we have a special bonus episode for you. In honor of Student Research Day, today we are joined by Jared Kostiuk, Simon Gordon, and Briana McWhirter, all of whom are currently involved in student research projects here at MacEwan University. First up, we have Jared Kostiuk. Jared is an honors psychology student at MacEwan University with a diverse research background spanning biology and psychology over the past 7 years. Recently, his focus has been on studying vulnerable demographics, particularly sexual and gender minorities. Jared's passion lies in understanding and supporting these communities through meaningful research and advocacy. Well, hello, Jared. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
I wanted to start by getting you to tell us a little bit about the current research that you're working on.
Yeah, so the current study I'm doing right now is called the Rainbow Study. It started 6 months before I got into it, but we were looking at the self-determination of minority students at MacEwan University, so sexual and gender minorities. And we looked at their perceptions of are they aware of the resources available to them at MacEwan University? Are they attending them? And also the perceptions of learning climate between minority students and non-minority students.
Oh, perfect. So you said that it started 6 months before you joined it. What motivated you to join that research project?
Well, I saw the job post and I immediately was drawn to it. Anything to do with minorities, I've always been drawn to. And when I saw the job post, I already was working on my honors thesis, which was also studying sexual minorities. So I already had some experience in that domain. And I'm also a sexual minority myself. So I had academic experience and also personal experience, which really motivated me towards it.
Amazing. And what kind of, you said that you're a sexual minority yourself, what inspires you about this type of research? And why are you drawn to it?
Well, it's the very vulnerable demographic. They experience a lot of hardships like discrimination, marginalization, and all that has so many consequences, like high rates of depression, anxiety, substance use. So it's definitely important to lift these people up and investigate them. And they're also a really understudied demographic. So I think it's really important that these populations get the research that they deserve.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Okay. So in your experience doing this research as a student, what have you found to be the most challenging part of it?
To be the most challenging, I would say, is just because it's already sexual and gender minorities are already such a small portion of the population, to get enough participants for it to be generalizable is quite hard, just because in our study, the majority of participants were cisgender heterosexual participants, and it was a minority of participants that were actually sexual and gender minorities, which we were mostly interested in. So I find just that is the hardest.
Okay, so when you do all of these participants and stuff, how do you go about finding them in the first place?
Well, we did a couple different things. We posted posters across the university, hoping people would go there. And we also visited classrooms, going class to class and talking to professors, see if we can go in front of the class and ask them if any students would be willing to participate in the study. Yeah.
Okay. Did you get, you said, a lot of them were cisgender, heterosexual.
Yes.
Did you find that you got a lot of participants, a lot of response from that? Or was it more challenging to get just people to sign up for it?
Yeah, well, it was challenging to get people to sign up for it. We had 213 participants and there was no incentives behind that. So I feel that also is inhibiting. People aren't super motivated to just do it on their own time, which makes sense. But I think even just some people are if they are a minority, it's kind of scary to go forward and just start disclosing all this personal information. So yeah, it can be challenging.
Yeah. No, I completely get that, especially, you're it's very vulnerable to go up and like start answering and all of these questions for people that they don't know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I can understand that. Like how would you mitigate that and make it more like comfortable for people?
That's a good question. Well, I think just really driving home that everyone's responses to surveys is confidential, anonymous. Like we whatever your responses are, we can't even put your name to what you said. So it's confidential. No one's actually going to know who you are. And also, the work that we're doing is to help these demographics. So if you ever experience some forms of discrimination or you want to have a more supportive environment at your university, I feel like it's hopefully just like sharing that information with them, that you're part of a bigger thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. So with this research, I'm kind of curious, like what is the goal of it? Like, where are you hoping that this research goes, or where it takes you, or...
Yeah, well, the study I was just talking about was a pilot study, and so that was just at MacEwan University, and thankfully we got a grant now to extend our research project to now universities across Alberta. So our goal is just to make sure like that universities are supporting minority students, and we want to see how the support services at these universities, what's the effect of that? Is it helping people be more autonomous? Do they feel more related to their peers and professors and just the community around? And also, do they feel competent in what they're doing? So we just want to see how the climate at universities, are they supporting these students or not? So I think we're on a really good track, just not just MacEwan, but so many different universities and different, across Alberta. So
okay. So you've got it spread out across Alberta.
Yeah.
So kind of where are you at right now in the research process?
Well, the pilot study, the Rainbow study, we finished it up. Now we're on a paper writing that. And then for the larger study, that's going to be across Alberta, we're just coming up with all of our methodology. So getting all our scales in order, ethics, all that stuff. So hopefully we'll be starting to collect data soon on that. And we also just have, like before, it was an issue to get participants to come. So we're trying to think of ways to get more participants, especially the ones in those vulnerable demographics.
Yeah. Okay. So the Rainbow project is finished. What were kind of the findings from that project?
The findings were, so for our students aware of these services, we found that for sexual orientation, it seems that like non-sexual minorities and sexual minorities were aware of about the same amount of services. So it was like 18. We asked for about 45 services, and they were aware of 18. And then for gender minorities, non-gender minorities were aware of 20, and gender minorities were aware of about 17. So there was gender minorities were aware of slightly less. And none of them are significant. So it's kind of a good thing that non-minority and minority students are aware of the same. And for learning climate, the second question, we found that on average, both sexual and gender minorities had a more negative perception of a learning climate, but those were also non-significant. So it's kind of good that it wasn't a significant result that if you are a minority or not minority, you're viewing learning climate in a similar way. And for our actual in self-determination, like the psychological needs of autonomy, relatedness, and competence, we found that for autonomy, it was positively correlated with attending services. So the more services that you attended, the more capable you felt, like you could make your own choices. You felt like more individual, like you were capable, self-efficient. And for sexual minorities, relatedness also found a significant score there too. And for genders, only autonomy was significant.
Okay. Kind of just going back to like the services, you asked them about 45, and like the average was like 17 to 20 that they knew about. That seems like a very large number of services that like MacEwan offers that people don't know about.
Yeah.
Was there any sort of insight into like what services were more like known about as compared to like the 2025 that people didn't know about?
Yeah, well, one of the major ones was Center for Sexual and Gender Diversity. That was a huge one. Also, we asked questions about like academic accommodation. So like if you go to like write your test in a different place, like those were the ones that were like pretty popular. But a lot of students just like weren't aware, like either if you didn't attend like orientation or there just wasn't enough like promotion in the school about it. Yeah.
Wow. So what kind of services were like the least known within MacEwan, if you remember? The
least known. Well, for those ones we asked, like we included almost every service available, and some of them were like food services, like if you want to study internationally and stuff like that. So something that was more niche, a lot of people didn't know about.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like I hear 45 and I'm just like, that's a lot of services.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that I don't know half of what MacEwan has to offer.
I had the same experience like before I started the study. Like I probably would have said like maybe 5, and then now I did this and I was like, okay, I'm one of those people that were also unaware of so many services. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually really interesting to know that like not only are you like looking at this, but you can also maybe like spread awareness to everything that the university has to offer, because if it's happening here at MacEwan, it's more than likely that it's going to happen at other institutions around. I've previously studied at the University of Alberta, and I don't think I was aware of like any of the services that they offered, but you know, that's a much larger school, right? Much larger campus. So it'll be interesting to see what you find when you do look at all of these other.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what happens there.
Schools. No, yeah. Okay, so just to kind of end off here, I want to ask you, what has been the most valuable part of your research? Whether that's like what you see it doing for the world, or what's been the most valuable to you? Yeah, what's been your favorite part about this whole process and experience?
Well, I've like had multiple research projects where I've been able to study this demographic, like or sexual, even if it's just sexual minorities or sexual and gender minorities, and I've been able to present my research. And in one of my other studies, I found that even just exposure to sexual minorities, even if it's just academic knowledge, actually improves perceptions of them. So even just being able to have a space where I'm able to share this information with people and, like I said, add to the literature about this demographic has been definitely so rewarding for me.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me.
Next, we are joined by Simon Gordon. Simon is a recent graduate from the Faculty of Computing Sciences here at MacEwan University and is currently a research assistant for the agriculture app Agrillo. His work focuses on bridging the gap between the science behind agricultural research and ordinary users. Simon spends his free time creating the infrastructure and applications for users, giving access to science and chemistry in a compact and simple way. Hi, Simon. Thanks so much for being here with us today.
Of course, yeah.
So I want to start by getting you to just explain a little bit about your current research.
Yeah, so right now I work as a project manager for PimaSense, which is a company I co-founded with my professors when I was still in university. And my research mostly involves translating research done in the field. So whether that be agricultural sensors or like mental health chemical sensors, translating that into a more user accessible manner, which will typically be through a mobile application or a website.
Oh, okay. What are those sensors, like the mental health sensors that you just mentioned, like those things?
They're electrochemical sensors that will interface with your sweat, and they will read the voltages of hormones in your body, so we can determine what your hormone levels are at roughly. And then we use that information to determine, in conjunction with like your heart rate, your sleep schedule, that kind of thing, into where you are at mentally. And then that information we use with machine learning models to give feedback on how you can improve.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Yeah. I would have never have thought like sensors like in your sweat to calculate hormones. So what is kind of like the practical use of that? So you're studying these, you're translating that data. What is that being used for?
Our main goal is to basically improve processes that people are already doing. So for the mental health aspect, the research is there for targeting people's mental health with, like, for example, the chemical sensors. But there isn't really a way for the wider public to access that. So that's kind of where our goal is to bridge that gap. Similarly with our agricultural app to let farmers have access to faster turnaround on soil testing and having better layouts for that kind of information, just to help kind of optimize that workflow.
Cool. Okay. So what inspired this line of work? Because you said that you co-founded this company with your professors. What kind of what led up to that?
Yeah. So this was already, the agriculture app was already a project before I had been onboarded onto this. And the original goal for that project was to give access to less economically wealthy countries to soil testing results. So one of my supervisors, Dr. Samuel Mugo, had this app and has had it active in places like Kenya, where they have a large agricultural industry, but access to more sophisticated soil testing is more limited. So that app initially purpose was to do soil testing. And then I came on later to basically improve upon those systems to make them better and more accessible widely to the rest of the world.
Okay. So you started out with this agricultural app, and then that kind of transitioned into like the mental health one, or like how?
Kind of. The mental health app was my first capstone project, was just kind of to see if it would work or not. And we saw that it does have potential. And so we developed on that a lot alongside the agricultural app. But things with mental health, and especially like health technology in general, is really complicated. And there's a lot of rules and regulations around doing it right. So while we are working on that, the agriculture app is our main focus right now.
So, okay. The agricultural app is there to help with soil testing and all of that. Where are you kind of at in that process?
Oh, that's a good question. We're almost ready to go public very soon. We're hoping to be doing closed user testing in late April to early May with farmers within the city. And in that time, these farmers will have hands-on with the application and its infrastructure. So for our first release, they'll have access to the soil testing feature where they can perform a soil test and then just take a picture of their test and upload it, and then we tell them what score that is. And then we have other features like general feedback for their entire land, and then a map where they can view the levels of different chemicals in the soil.
Okay. Have you actually brought this to different farmers and people to kind of like test it out and see how it performs like so far?
Yeah, we have with a couple people. We're working with someone, Dr. Kostiuk, who has a lot of experience in this industry, and he's been helping us tremendously through this project. But our main testing with a large amount of people will be upcoming.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's kind of going to be where, like, when it goes, like, before it goes public.
Yeah. Kind of? To make sure that like, we iron out everything that we think we need to, because, like, I don't work in agriculture, right? So I can only do what I think would be best based off of the information I get. So, but getting a lot of eyes of people who would actually use it and getting that feedback is going to be really important.
Yeah, no kidding. Getting like the feedback from the people who are actually going to be using it.
Yeah.
So you have worked with like a few people. What has the general response been so far?
Very positive. The thing that I was most worried about was like the user accessibility, because when I'm using applications, that's the biggest thing for me, is making sure that it feels good to use. Mm-hmm. But it seems from the interactions I've had that they care quite a bit more about the features itself. So traditionally, the time roughly it would take to get results back from soil testing can be anywhere from days to weeks. And it can be really expensive because you're going to have to be doing one at a time. And if you want to do a lot of them, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So most of the time, people only do one or maybe a couple. And they seemed excited that our app would let them get those results instantly. And the price point is a lot lower. So we want to incentivize being able to test a lot of different spots around your property so you can have more accurate like knowledge of what the chemicals look like across your land.
Yeah, no, that seems like a really valuable tool for a lot of farmers, especially for those in like the really rural, like remote locations. And I know Alberta is like huge for the agriculture industry, and especially in the small towns. So this seems like something that will help a lot of people, and it'll be really excited to see how the testing and like the launch goes.
Yeah.
So in doing all of this and like being a part of this project, what so far has been the most challenging for you?
I think both a blessing and a curse. It's the project management. So having to organize what is the most important task at any given point in time, and then having sources from externally asking for new features or tweaks to things or changes has definitely been the most challenging, because trying to organize which part of the application would be the most important to work on now, especially with having tight deadlines for when we want to test and when investors want us to go live with certain things, that can be really tough. But at the same time, it's really enriching because it teaches me a lot about how to optimize my own workflow and how to organize people we work with better.
Have you ever been in like a project management position before, or is this kind of like your first go at it?
Yeah, this will be my first go at it. Yeah, so I've learned a lot. I've learned to say yes less often, but yeah, it's interesting. I like it.
Okay. And what kind of like, other than like the few things that you mentioned, what kind of is like your role as a project manager? Like, what are you responsible for in this project? Yeah,
so my position currently within our company is as a co-founder project manager. So my job is mainly to organize the people we work with. Mm-hmm. So we have a pretty multidisciplinary team that we have people in chemistry, 2 teams, one with chemical sensors, which is for the agriculture, and then another for electrochemical. And then we have the programmers that help build out our back end, our website, which I would be in that category too, working on the mobile application, as well as interacting with possible investors or people who are helping us. So that would come in the form of having meetings, a lot of meetings, and learning a lot so I can help direct the ship in a better direction.
Oh, wow. Well, it seems like a really important role that you've taken on. But honestly, it sounds like you are learning a lot. So with that, you kind of talked about how enriching the experience has been, but what's kind of like the most valuable thing that you've learned or that you've found just during this process, and especially like starting it as a student and, moving into it in like a role after you've graduated? Like, what's been the most valuable part?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's learning that you can't do everything yourself. Like, you need to have people around you that are good at what they do to do those things, because it's too much for one person to be doing everything that they think they need to do for a project at one time. It's just not feasible. So I think learning to lean on people that are really good at what they do, like our chemistry team is amazing. My supervisors are great at helping reach out to people, that both investors and people that can help us. Just learning how much people it takes to build something great, I think, is really valuable.
Yeah. Well, I think with like any sort of big project, like teamwork, collaboration is so important. And I think that's really great that that's been really valuable to you. Yeah, just like before we end here, is there any advice you would have for students who are looking into the possibility of research projects in their undergrad?
Yeah, I think like short answer, if you have an opportunity, just take it, because you're going to learn so much. And it's not so much that it's going to be like, for me, if I were to take one, wouldn't necessarily be about computing science. I find the value in it is learning about things you're not comfortable with, like outside of your field. So for example, when I had my first capstone, while I was working with like computer programming, a lot of the challenges was actually with the chemistry stuff. So learning how electrochemical sensors work and how to analyze that information, there's a lot of value in that, because it gives you a lot of knowledge you wouldn't have had access to otherwise, and it really rounds you out as a person, I think.
Yeah. Well, perfect. Thank you so much for being here and talking with us. And I'm excited to see where this agriculture app goes for you.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And last but certainly not least, we are joined by Briana McWhirter. Briana is a recent graduate from MacEwan University, where she majored in supply chain management and minored in business intelligence. Her post-secondary journey began with a diploma in business management before transferring into the BCom program. Briana now works with Indigenous Box, supporting Indigenous businesses through supply chain innovation. Well, hello, Briana. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start by getting you to just tell us a little bit about your current research.
So our research was about insights into demand forecasting with machine learning based on qualitative data. But in reality, it's about demand forecasting inventory management for SMEs. We found that the research was really important because of the SMEs don't have the resources or the capacity to really look into inventory management, and then they find that they're having a really hard time with minimum stock, or they are having supply chain issues and they just don't have the right stock at the right time. Yeah.
And just for clarification for our listeners, could you explain what an SME is?
Oh, SME is a small medium enterprise, but there's also MSME, which is micro. So micro is like 1 to 5 employees, and the total financial is that they are making more than $1 million per year. So micro is 1 to 5, small is 5 to 10, and then medium is 25 to 100, and large is 100 and over.
All right. So how did this all start? Like, what got you interested in this particular research?
My research journey began when I was invited by my professor to apply for a research internship. I had the right skills for this project as I was really well versed in Python and machine learning techniques. It was also because of being in the business intelligence minor in School of Business. He taught me in courses related to my major and my minor being supply chain, my major and minor being business intelligence. He saw an opportunity for me to combine my interests in supply chain management and business intelligence, encouraged me to apply both of my passions through this research.
Okay. So why this particular subject? Like, why have you chosen to study this?
I first became interested in the business intelligence during the COVID-19 lockdown while attending an online transportation class for my major taught by Sunny. She was mentioning the minor in her class, and at the time I had been sitting next to my mom, and my mom did an exorcist turn of her head and said, "You have to take that minor." And I was like, oh, okay. And then when I asked her why, she said, with data mining skills, you'll be able to do whatever you want in supply chain. And that moment really stuck with me, and it has shaped the path that I've followed since.
So is that kind of connected with your connection to this particular thing, or like?
Yeah, supply chain has always been a part of my life. Both of my parents have worked in the supply chain field for as long as I can remember. I knew early on that it would be something I was good at. Business intelligence, on the other hand, was new and exciting. I've always enjoyed problem solving and spotting patterns, as I said, and that is exactly what I work with. Data is uncovering the story behind the numbers.
Oh, cool. Okay. So just kind of going off of that, why do you believe that what you're doing is important? What makes this research important for the real world?
It's how it connects people, processes, and technology through storytelling. Data isn't just numbers, it reflects real experiences and decisions. I love being able to translate complex information into stories that drive understanding, action, and impact. For example, Testbed 1, we did, they had exported their data to us, and it was extremely dirty. And it's, when you're doing anything with data, it's garbage in, garbage out. And if you don't clean it up, you can't transform it, you can't do anything with it. So one of the challenges was they had 2 dates in there, something like an order date or a ship date. And then you would be able to do a weekly, monthly, yearly forecast. And for them, it was they wanted to basically predict their minimum stock, but they were also doing it from a raw material, and their exporter was not in Canada. So there was a lot of challenges, like learning the different predictive modeling techniques. It's not taught in the last couple of classes of business intelligence. That was a learning on my own. I learned about 52 different models.
Oh, wow.
And they all have different objectives, but they also have different requirements. So if we were doing something seasonal, the data has to be seasonal or it just does an error and it's useless, which is a hard thing but it was a huge learning experience. We also did, because we did a lot of different predictive modeling techniques. For example, Profit, which is something used by Facebook for finding data and marketing for Facebook. We also did a lot of large language models, but also like neural networks. It kind of works like a brain, but you can do CNN and it just does images and such. And it was a really cool learning experience.
Well, that sounds really cool. I also really like the idea of looking at data as data, but as like stories. I think that's so fascinating and a parallel that a lot of people might not make.
For storytelling, it's we put it in Power BI, and it's, okay, here's an overview of your company, but what are you looking for? And we did ask our test bed what he wanted, and he said, I don't know what I want. So we did a whole bunch of different stuff. We did it by category, by SKU, by service, or by product. And we showed a really big overview of his company as a whole and where there was gaps and where they should maybe focus a little bit more of attention. So for example, they had a description line, and you could tell that there was 7 different users, because it would be, say, left hand was something for one of their products, but it would be LF or LH, or it would be left hand, or it would be left and hand, or it would be the and sign. And you can't actually put that into your model until you standardize that. And that was the longest part of the project, was knowing, because you have to go back to the partner and you have to say, what does this mean? What does this mean? And what does this mean? And they go, oh, here's some definitions, or here's what we were saying here. And it's, okay, now you have to go and apply that. And I think that was one of the most important pieces, is that you always had that external partner. They were always updated, and they were always having, I want to say monthly updates of where we were going, or we would have presentations with them and say, this is our findings. What would you like us to find next, or what would you like us to improve on?
No, yeah, the whole like standardize of the thing. I worked at a company once where we sold products, but none of the codes in the system were standardized. So you had to remember all of the different spelling mistakes in the names and all of the different ways that they came up. Or if you had like a group of something, you would have to remember the group, but the one product that's in that group is in a different group when you search it up. And I remember what a nightmare that was. So being able to standardize.
Oh, and I find that was a lot of, so that is something with SMEs or MSMEs, is that they don't think about that, because they don't know what condition their data is in. There's some companies that just collect everything, and I would rather they collect everything and you just delete that than, yeah, we just don't collect data. What do you mean? You don't have any data? And they're like, no, we can give you, say, QuickBooks, but we don't have a CRM. And it's like, well, how do you track your demand? We don't. Then I don't think you're at the maturity for this level of project that we are trying to aim for.
Yeah.
Because if you don't record, say like most people that we talked to in interviews did Smart Sheets or Excel, which is fine. Some of them did Power BI. Some of them did some higher like actual ERP systems. But for say challenge-wise, micros and smalls had way more issues than medium. Medium at least had ERPs or Power BI knowledge, versus micro and small had a lot harder concepts because they're usually starter companies who just came out of college or they started it later on in life and they just don't see the significance of data.
Yeah, and they're still learning. And I'm sure along the lines, they will learn to value the data that they can collect for their company.
That's something that that's something that is hugely emphasized in the business intelligence minor, is that data has to be told through a story at any audience. So then you can show them the significance.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really smart way of doing it, I think. And this is coming from somebody who has no knowledge of the business world. Like, I will be upfront about that. But okay, kind of like moving forward with this, I wanted to ask, throughout all of your experience with everything, what has kind of been the most challenging part of this research for you?
It would be where to draw the boundary, how many models to run, how many external factors to consider, how these factors would impact specific industries. It always came down to the same conclusion. If a problem couldn't be solved analytically, it shouldn't involve machine learning. Additionally, like integrating qualitative data into machine learning was a complicated task. So qualitative being we recorded all of our interviews and then we had to code that and put that in as data. And they were lines of whatever they said. So I think we had about 12 questions. Mm-hmm. And each interview was recorded and you had to go back and grab it. But then you had to actually put a sentence into something transformable. So like something we did was external factors. What external factors do you look into for your company? And a lot of them were trends. So up and coming technology trends, demand trends, markets. If a lot of the companies were oil and gas, so a lot of them were off of oil prices or environmental risks or what the government was doing and what small projects were being done. And then trying to convert that into something to put into your data is a little, it took quite a long time.
Yeah, so drawing the lines of like where to kind of like scale back the amount of stuff. Like were you able to find that line?
We did, because it was only a year project.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to capture the nuances of human experience and decision makings in a way that an algorithm can process it efficiently. It's just knowing all of the teachings of those classes, but also asking the funding partner and asking the external partner, what are you actually looking for, so we can draw the line instead of going all the way, like the sky's the limit. And you have to draw a line because it is only a year project. And you still have to ask the external partners for their time and their resources and their data, and they have to trust you. So it's a give and a take relationship, and that was something that was really important.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of going off of that, on the flip side, what have you found to be the most valuable part of taking part in this research?
Seeing how these insights directly impact real-world businesses, particularly in improving their inventory management and forecasting. The ability to translate abstract data into actionable strategies was extremely rewarding, reinforcing the real-world value of my work. I could only achieve all of this through the funding of MyTechs and Apana Technologies, as well as the invaluable guidance of my mentor, Parminder Singh Kang. And I feel the most rewarding was actually being able to combine my major and my minor and just actually go with it, because I do know the learnings of this project I would like to apply to my current company or to a future company.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and talking about your research.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we have for today's episode of Research Recasted. If you want to support this podcast, you can visit Research Recasted on your favorite podcast platforms to find new episodes every 2 weeks. Also, don't forget to check us out on Instagram at Research Recasted, where you can give us a like, leave us a follow, or send us any follow-up questions you have from today's episode. This has been Research Recasted, the Knowledge Mobilization podcast, brought to you by the Office of Research Services and the Faculty of Fine Arts and Communications at MacEwan University.